felt great.
Our performance was great. I think the judges were being a little bit too critical, but hey, we can always bring it back next week and bring it even harder.
Bring me the next house.
Said you wanna be a legend. A statement, a star. Said you wanna be a legend. A statement, a star. I'm so, all I really wanna be is an icon or a statement. No, it's legendary. I'm so, all I really wanna be is an icon or a statement. No, it's legendary. Legendary. I'm legendary. I'm legendary.
Welcome back to The Let Out, the official Legendary podcast. I'm your host, Mikelle Street. In each episode, I sit down and hear from the members of the house that got chopped. By now, you've hopefully seen episode 2 and know that we said goodbye to the up-and-coming iconic House of Prodigy. After channeling some major Rocky vibes on the floor, Prodigy got the KO from the judges, earning one of the lowest scores of the night. Here to tell us all about it is overall house mother and Philadelphia face icon, Jacen Prodigy.
I am Ballroom.
P-R-O-D-I-G-Y. Work Prodigy.
Hey, Jacen.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. How was your time on Legendary?
How was my time on Legendary? Well, first of all, we are in the midst of a pandemic.
Right.
So that added an additional interesting layer to it. Our first 2 weeks there, we were quarantined in hotel rooms for 14 days with no outside activity whatsoever. I don't even know how I got through it, actually. So, that was very challenging in the beginning. And then, just getting adjusted to, by profession, I'm a celebrity makeup artist, and, I'm used to taking COVID tests, but to take a COVID-19 test, every single day, it was it played a toll on your mental after a while. But outside of that, to say the least, it was a very great experience.
So 2 episodes in, it's Grand March, which we know in Ballroom, right? It's Grand March, which we know in Ballroom, and you're sort of each house is showing who you are. And so for you, what was it that you guys really wanted to show as a house?
So as a house, it was interesting because normally at a ball, we would have way more time for Grand March. Mm-hmm. It was a come as you are ball, so it wasn't like they provided wardrobe for us. So my son, G Prodigy, actually was in the hotel room sewing and we were ordering things from Amazon and getting fabric sent in. So we literally made our outfits, our boxing outfits in, a week and a half we had to make that. G was up sewing day and night. We're in one hotel room, we're throwing stuff across the hall. And so all you see is gloves and shoes and rhinestones and all of those things. So we really wanted to showcase that the House of Prodigy is from Philadelphia, that we were fighters, we're champions. We definitely come with the heat. We're talented. We're multifaceted. We're not just known for, one category, even though our house is predominantly known for realness and performance. We also have face, we have style, we have, uniqueness. That's what makes us prodigies. We stand out from the rest. So that's really what we wanted to translate. And then, we basically were coming to knock out the competition. So all those things in combined is how we kind of came up with the whole boxing type feel to our looks. It was some things that happened in regards to once you come up with this idea of what you're going to wear, certain things don't work in movement. For example, all of us had on boxing gloves, but then we realized that, when we're doing hand performance, one glove could fly off, the other glove, it just became a little bit of a mess. So we removed certain things. But I think that overall they got the concept. The concept was very literal, maybe too literal.
Yeah, I think it was for sure, you're right. There was very clear who you were, where you were coming from. But before we, seg into sort of the house and the history, a little bit about sort of your thoughts about, the judges' critiques and the decision and, why you're here so early.
Well, I think the judges were really on some bullshit. And I think that, I'm going to just be transparent.
Listen, let the girls know.
I think that overall, it's interesting when each judge is supposed to judge one thing in particular, when they always jump to another place. And law, I've never seen someone be so unimpressed that's unimpressible. And with that being said, it was kind of he was supposed to just be judging us based upon fashion. You gave us a low score only because you said that to you we didn't do all 5 elements. But are you looking? We did all 5 elements. We did hands, catwalk, duck walk, spins, and dips. It was a whole minute and 13-second performance. What didn't you see?
I will say, let's just point out there that like you listed 4 of the 5 elements, right? Which there was not a lot of floor performance from what I can recall.
No, floor performance was definitely involved in it.
Okay.
It wasn't like, we didn't have like an all-out 5-second, 10 seconds
Right.
on the floor
Right.
type of thing, but it definitely was all 5 elements. Now, give you some behind the scenes tea. We were supposed to be the 5th house, and they ended up moving us to the 1st house because they said that production had said that, out of all the houses, we were the strongest and most cohesive. They really liked our stuff, so they moved us up. So I think what happened with us is, and again, I can take responsibility for certain things looking back that we could have changed or altered a little bit, but I think it was more or less like we're the 1st house. They want to set the bar. They want to set an example because it kind of was like, I've seen some things and, witnessed some things, and I'm looking around and I'm like, what? Like, how did we...
Yeah, I mean, context is really key, right? Like you judge one thing in comparison to another thing. So if you guys were first, there's nothing to compare you to, right?
Right.
I mean, thinking about Ballroom in general, right? People are really intentional about when they come out.
Exactly. So, with them programming us in our head that we were going to be 5th, when we got there and they moved us up to 1st, it was like, oh, wait, like, okay, like we're 1st now. And again, being someone who is an icon, I've been in the ballroom scene 22 years. I'm an overall mother. I'm usually somebody that, for lack of a better comparison, I'm more of like a law when I am sitting on a panel. So I kind of understood. I'm very stern, very, I follow the way the category is written. So being on the other side, I can kind of understand their stance on, wanting to make like, oh, this is season 2, and y'all gotta bring da-da-da-da-da. But at the same time, it was like, be consistent with that energy. Like, be that way throughout. And I don't feel like they were that way throughout at all.
So I was interested in talking a little bit about how you picked the members of the house that came. Obviously, you came overall mother. And I love Hank, and also love Deja Vu. But there were some names that I didn't see that I expected to see. And so I'm interested to hear a little bit about, why you guys went with the names that you went with for this team.
Well, actually, we had no say-so in that. And I think that, like, that's the biggest misconception that people think. They think that, like, I had say-so over who came. We had no say-so. I think it was, like, maybe, like, 50 or 60 prodigies that applied. It got lowered down to 8. Allison Prodigy was one of the 8. Chloe was one of them, too. And it got lowered down to 6, and Chloe was one of the 6, and then we had 5 in an alternate. Well, the day before we left, they cut Chloe, and when they cut Chloe, it actually caused an issue with the house because Chloe was under the assumption that I, in particular, didn't want her on the show and got her removed. So in turn with that, now we're going to switch gears to Ballroom. Chloe left the House of Prodigy. Chloe is now in the House of West because Chloe thought that I had say-so in her not going to the show, and that's not the case at all. So, I wish that there had been, an opportunity for it to be more members of the house because the House of Prodigy has so many talented members. But the ones that were selected by Scout and HBO were selected, and we were the ones that were picked. So that's how it kind of went.
That's real. So I want to sort of move on a little bit to the history and just a little bit of an overview about, when you guys got started, how, and all that.
So I actually came from the, which was on season 1, the legendary, iconic House of Ebony. So I was an Ebony. Our house was founded by my father, the founding father of the House of Prodigy, icon man Prodigy, Kevin Prodigy, Rich Prodigy Mugler, Tanaka Prodigy, Ronnie Prodigy, Niambi, Brian, and Mika, our former our founding mother, our former overall mother of the House of Prodigy. When the House of Prodigy started, we debuted at the Revlon Ball in 2002. It was a big, like, whole thing that happened because everybody was shocked that man left the House of Ebony, as the overall father. When we first debuted, we did not have an overall mother. The night that we came out at the Revlon Ball, the shade was extremely thick. Like, I mean, you know a lot about Ballroom, Mikelle, so like the drama behind the scenes of the House of Prodigy starting was nuts. It got even more crazier when Mika had debuted as the overall mother, and when she debuted as the overall mother, it was a shock because Mika was Mika Ebony, and that was Sanaya's daughter, so she left from underneath Sanaya, she became our overall mother, and the rest is kind of like history from there. Our house colors are blue, white, and silver. Our motto is, many are born, but only few are born prodigies. The prodigies are, known for being distinct, unique, talented individuals. We're like a diamond in the rough. Like, we are all collectively shine individually, and together we're just this real big, beautiful mass of fabulousness. That's the best way that I can explain it.
You know, one thing that's sort of legendary, we see a lot of performance is very performance heavy, and you guys obviously have a lot of amazing performance people, but the house is sort of really historically known for realness, and that doesn't get as much attention. But I wanted to just ask a little bit about sort of like, have you maybe explain for people a little about what realness is?
So realness is a category that really, as years have gone, we realness kind of means something different in ballroom now.
Mm-hmm.
But at one time or another, it was about, can you blend into society? Can you look like a cisgender heterosexual male, or can you look like a cisgender heterosexual female? Or if you're a butch queen in drag, do you look so much like a woman? Even though you're not, on hormone therapy, you might not live your everyday life as a trans woman, but, do you look, feel, smell, give the aura of what realness is? Realness is like one of the oldest categories in the ballroom scene. And it's definitely something that, our house is dominated. We've been realness as a house of the year countless amount of times. We've won countless amount of realness categories, from femme queen realness to drag realness to butch, trans man, etc. But, overall, like, our house has dominated realness in every style of performance, like, period.
And so we say all of that, but I want to get specifically to you, and your category, as long as I've known, has been face.
Yes.
Not only do you have it, do you sell it yourself, but like you also, a lot of the face girls come to you to get their makeup done for when they're about to walk face. Just give people a little explanation of what face is from a ballroom perspective, and maybe talk a little bit about sort of your trajectory within that category.
So the face category really is all about the symmetry of your face, your jawline, your cheeks, your teeth, your nose, your eyes, your hairline, your complexion, and also all about your presentation, your grooming, your nails, making sure your nails are clean. So it's really like a glamour category. And even when it comes to ballroom, femme queen face is like the mecca of all categories. Butch queen face became the mecca of all categories, because at one time or another, like how in today's ballroom, everybody wants to vogue femme. But at one time, everybody wanted to walk face. So, that's where the origins of the category, come from. And honestly speaking, when I started walking face, that wasn't my initial category. I was walking pretty boy realness. And for those, again, going back to the realness category, it's just a very pretty boy that looks like a cisgender heterosexual male. But I was at the Crystal Ball in 2000 here in Philadelphia, hosted by Jay Blahnik, Man Ebony at the time, and Tiny Cartier. Eric Christian Bazaar, rest in peace, who was one of our commentators. They were having a new face category, and everybody was getting chopped. And I remember Eric had kept looking at me, so I'm like, what is he looking at me like that for? So at this time, I'm 16 years old, I'm in the ball with my friends, I'm in the House of Prestige. He literally grabbed my hand and was like, face like him. And I was like, huh? So he took my hat off my head. I had this like really curly hair, and I'm standing there and he just like smiled. So I smiled, and like the judges started going crazy. So like I must have processed like 6 people. I ended up losing the final battle to someone else, but that kind of like started my face career.
Just giving the listeners context, processing is when you go through people one after the other and just beating everybody.
And believe it or not, that has become the trajectory of my ballroom career.
And it's interesting because we've talked about this before, right? Is that like when you really get into ballroom, like everybody who walks face has face. So it's about how you sort of sell it and present it, right?
Right, because after you see someone and you give them 10s, you already give them 10s for what is on their face and what you're looking at, right? And then after that, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do you entice me? Like, what do you do to pull me in, to get into your features, to accentuate, the great things about your face, the uniqueness about your face? And like, that's something that I had to capitalize off of, because in my years of walking face, I didn't look like everybody else. So I didn't have those European features. I didn't have like that small pinched nose, growing up, I was always told that I looked like Genuine, and, that was kind of I guess you could say, the premise of that pretty boy, but I was a pretty all-American boy that was unique, but in comparison to the other faces walking at that time, I didn't look like them. Right. So on top of not looking like them, my attitude was always on 1,000. My image was always on 1,000. I had no fear of battling anybody. So it was kind of like all those things, you put all that in the pot and you stir it around, and that's where you get Jacen Prodigy from.
It's interesting because I always want to hear from people about what walking this category does for you. I know some people, it sort of added to their confidence, and some people, it affirmed them in various ways. And I wonder, did it ever serve anything for you in that way?
Well, yes. I came out very young. I graduated high school when I was 16 years old. I came out when I was 16. I was very awkward looking. I was going from a chubby stage to a kind of thinned out. I knew I was attractive, but the confidence that I had, because I was still struggling with my own identity and really trying to understand my placement in the world, the category kind of plays on your mental for a second. And if you're not strong, it can really make you think that, you have to go alter and change things about yourself to meet this certain aesthetic. And I'm so glad that I stood true to myself in those early years, and just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And over time, what it did do was it created the monster. So it's kind of like I realize now, what it means and how to walk into a room and demand attention without even making a sound.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that just comes from the look I give on my face and my eyebrows, or just my poise, or, just my presence. And all those things I learned, by participating and walking in Ballroom in the face category. And it's definitely even helped me in my makeup career because, if it had not been for a Ballroom, I would have never been a makeup artist. I started doing makeup on myself because I used to pick my bumps when I was younger. I had hyperpigmentation areas on my face. I wanted to cover it up. And then from that, walking in Ballroom and wearing makeup and trying different makeup looks from Club Kid phase to, for those listening, Club Kid phase was like when they kind of went into the Club Kid era in the New York club scene, and when they put rhinestones and different eyeshadows and lashes on your face. So like experimenting and really pushing my look and trying different things really made me comfortable as a man to stand firm and cross over and bring what I learned in Ballroom over to my makeup profession, which also created the shades of Jacen. So, yeah.
I would love for you to sort of explain to me sort of one of your most significant moments for you that you really love, that you think about a lot in Ballroom, on the floor.
Yes. So I will say that I've had a lot of battles. I've won over a lot of people. But I will say, to me, my defining moment was actually two, but the outcome kind of came out the same, was 2007 at the Milan Ball in Atlanta, Georgia. I remember the night before being at the nightclub, and all the face kids were around each other, and Selvin was, MC Deborah was at the club, and I was basically saying to everybody, I'm coming for everybody, I'm getting everybody. No, none of you bitches want it. I'm telling y'all right now, tomorrow is all about Jacen. And though I was really like bluffing, but at the same time, I was very serious. And that night, I will never forget it because it ended up being me being the only Prodigy. It was 2 Chanels and 5 Balenciagas, and I went through everybody. Like, I completely zapped out because I knew that, number one, I'm the last person standing here from a different house. Like, and then I'm in Atlanta. The Balenciagas debuted in Atlanta. They have a strong Atlanta presence. The Balenciagas are known for, producing, prominent face kids. So like, no, like, bitch, I'm zapping out.
Right.
Like, what's up? Tap this bitch. Come on, let's go. You want some? Let's go to the back. And I remember that was like my defining moment. That's what made me legendary because finally it was kind of one of them things where I went through years where I reigned and I didn't lose. But that one moment was the night that I was like, oh, bitch, I'm legendary. You can't tell me nothing, girl, please. Like, Miss Thing, please. Y'all don't want no smoke. Please. And then later years after that, I'll say in recent times, I walked a exposition ball here in Philadelphia at the Art Museum. And one thing about me that I've always been great at doing, I'm able to kind of look around the room and I find something that's going to make everybody look at me. I think the worst thing that they can do when you're walking face is be boring because it's already a category they're looking at you for your vanity. You have to bring some kind of excitement to it. And I remember, Emery had walked that night, Lisa had walked, a couple people had walked, and the building was so quiet. So I'm gonna give y'all a mental picture. Imagine the Rocky Balboa steps, the Rocky steps outside the Art Museum in Philadelphia where Rocky runs the steps, but we're inside of a building. And there's people on both sides of the left-hand side and right-hand side of these steps, and they got their cameras out and they're looking and they're enthusiastic about, what's going on, but it's face, it's not voguing, so it's kind of boring. I had these big black wings on that I had worn for the Lime Vin Ball. I had recycled the look because they wanted me to wear that. And I remember like Love Hangover came on and Jack was talking, and then it was like that, doom, doom, doom. I don't want to get... I took the wings off, and I was just like, Jacen, go down these steps backwards. Just do it.
Right.
Mind you, these are concrete steps, like hard steps. Like, I'm like, I didn't practice this. I was looking like, just do it. Whatever happens, happens. I came down them steps backwards, and the entire building went berserk. Like, they went berserk.
First of all, those steps are iconic in Ballroom, just in general. You know what I mean? You think about like moments on those steps, but those are the moments, right, that like somebody went up and was like, in that moment in Paris is Burning, right? She goes up to the fan and like, you know what I mean, to catch the air, or like
Paris Dupree taking off the wig, like you Butch Queen,
right?
Butch Queen, like stuff like that is just so ballroom. It's just like it happens in a moment. You don't think about it. You kind of have adrenaline. You just go for what you know.
Right, like Deja coming off you know what I mean? Like the girls are just doing all this stuff, and it's also so much of like you have to be in that moment and like being able to sort of feel that moment out.
If I can go back to this too, I think that's what made it so hard this season about Legendary. We feed off the crowd, and there was no crowd, so it was like nothing to feed off of. So you're trying to feed off the room, but there's nothing there. It's just lights and cameras.
Yeah.
So,
I've been thinking that for a while, but it's interesting to hear from your perspective. I always think that like, really what we end up seeing on the floor is a combination of like the energy in the room in addition to the energy that the performer is bringing, right?
Right.
And so sadly, we don't have as much energy in those rooms. But I'd love to also hear about just sort of coming into the competition, seeing the other teams, seeing the other houses. What did you think coming in about, everybody else? Was it like, oh, this is about to be, a tight competition? Like, how was your mindset?
Funny story. I got to quarantine in LA a day late because I was working on this television show that's coming out. And when I got there, like it was like late at night, so I didn't even know who was there. We were all quarantined in our hotel rooms. And it's funny because like, I never let nobody know that I was going. I didn't say anything. I just, I'm going to LA to be on the show. I'm gonna just keep my mouth shut. I didn't find out like who all was there until somebody made a mistake and sent the email out. And when they sent the email out, it had a list of all the names that was on there. And I was like, oh shit, Shannon's here, Stasha's here, Diego's here, Tati's here, Honey's here. I said, girl, the people is here. Like, this is about to be a nasty season. So, again, knowing that, Stasha and Shannon and Diego and Prince and I can go down a list of names that, Gia and Simone, like, knowing that they are all, what I would consider to be A-list talent from Ballroom, and we're all competing on this show was just so, it was definitely an iconic moment. And win, lose, or draw, it was a great thing to do. It was a great thing to be a part of. It's a great thing to be a part of the fabric of Ballroom's history and to have so many different types of representation from various houses. And the good thing that I wish would have happened, but unfortunately because of COVID, it couldn't, they kept us so separated from each other that I don't think they realized that it was so much love that we all have for each other outside of the fact that we're competing in different houses. And, that's the beauty about Ballroom. Like, Khalik Balenciaga is like one of my daughters, like, one of my sons. And he used to be a prodigy. So it's kind of like...
If she's your daughter, she's your daughter. Like,
sometimes you say daughter, sometimes you say son. It just, it depends on the mood or the situation. But, to be... in spaces, and then, Diego Mugler, his mom passed away, like, coming into the show, like, and, I've watched Diego grow up. Me and Diego have a good relationship. So, we weren't able to kind of, like, fellowship with each other, which was unfortunate, obviously, because of COVID. So it definitely added a layer of, like, I want to give you a hug, but I just can't because of this COVID stuff. We got to stay separated. Yeah. So it was different. It was really, really different.
That brings up the point that, like, one of the things most of the time at the end of a battle, right, is the girls hug. Sometimes when you process and you don't.
Well, I don't hug. Yeah, I don't hug. We can hug. We can hug at the bar, and I might buy you a drink if I won the money. Like, come on, girl, let's get a drink. But I'm not hugging you on the runway. No hugs.
Right. Some girls give that because when they're in the battle zone, it's battle, and that's all that it is. But, a lot of times the girls like to hug after.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, like, we're all family. Like, we might be in different houses, but we're all one. And we have went through the trenches with each other. We have grown up with each other. We have seen everybody through their highs, their lows, and in-betweens. And that's the beauty about Ballroom. It's like, it's family. Like, it's family.
So my last question is, who do you think should go home next?
From what I've seen, I think that the House of Lux should be chopped next. I'm really rooting for the House of Tichi and the House of Mugler to take the $100,000, but I'm really rooting for the Tichis. I love the Tichis. I think what the Tichis bring is something so unique and so powerful, and I'm really rooting for the Tichis.
Well, I'm going to say that you also named two of my favorite teams.
Okay.
But thank you so much for coming. I did not want to keep you long.
Oh, no, we can talk for hours. I love talking. It's fine. No, it's no problem.
All the love to the up-and-coming iconic House of Prodigy. and overall mother Jacen Prodigy, who shows us that having face is really more than having face. If you've already watched episode 3, come join me in talking to the next eliminated house. And if you haven't, hurry up. Tell us all your thoughts about the departure of House of Prodigy over at Legendary Max on Instagram. The Let Out is produced by HBO Max in partnership with Spoke Media. Make sure you stream episodes of Legendary and The Let Out on HBO Max. I'm your host, Mikelle Street, and you can find me at Mikelle Street on Instagram. For Spoke Media, our producer is Ariel Mejia with help from Gibran Mendez, Alicia Force, Brigham Mosley, Janielle Kastner, and myself. Original music and sound design by Evan Arnett. Special thanks to Clay Kim. Executive producers are Aaliyah Tavakolian and Keith Reynolds. See you next time.